We are in London with Dr. Chefeda Hailemariam, who is a sociolinguist who was teaching at the University of Asmara in Eritrea, but now he is one of the probably hundreds of thousands of Eritreans who are leaving the country. You are in fact living in the UK, in Manchester, and you are a refugee, like many others, many other Eritreans who are refugees, and others who are still looking for this status. So what is happening in Eritrea, which is a country of 4 million people? Now so many people are leaving, it will depopulate?
Yeah, of course. Tiny Eritrea at the moment is one of the countries that is become at the top of refugee sending countries, and it has become a worrying kind of an issue now at the moment because of the level and the extent of the country, of the people living the country. And as you said, what's going to happen? Well, of course, there's going to be some kind of depopulation, or if you like, some kind of demographic crisis in the country, because the number of young people who should be there to build the country, to really become the most important assets of the nation, are leaving it. So it's a worrying situation. It's of great concern for people, for responsible citizens.
If people want to leave the country, they cannot do it?
No, that's one of the reasons. In fact, people cannot leave the country legally. They are not allowed, or they are not issued with exit visa. It's a country that has still instituted exit visa, a practice that belonged to the older communist era days. So people have no choice but to cross borders at a very high risk and leave their country.
What can happen if I want to cross border?
Well, in crossing the border, of course, many people are ready to take any kind of risk, from being caught and brought back and detained and severely punished to being shot. So people are ready to take any risk.
Shot like at the time of Berlin Wall?
Yeah, I have no idea how the Berlin Wall crossing had been difficult, but at the moment we know from sources that many people have been shot in the last 5-6 years. Many have had to face detention and severe punishment after being caught twice or 3 times for some people in some cases. So this is the kind of a situation, and the desperation of people to leave. It's unimaginable.
If you want to live in Eritrea, you are forced to serve in the military for how long?
For the young people, in theory, they're told that the national service is 18 months, but there are people who have been in the military for 20 years. Someone was on the news a few days ago that he was a conscript since 1994. For practically he had spent half of his life, 20 years of his 40 years life in the military.
This is a form of slavery?
It is indeed. This is a country, this is a state that treats its people like private property. So young people have no any rights to take their own decision about their own lives. They have no way of deciding what to do, what to study. They have no freedom of movement, and it's a state that really owns the population as private property.
So Eritrea is now something like a concentration camp?
Well, for many people it is, in fact, because if people are not allowed to leave the country, if they don't have the freedom to get exit visas and visit places like they want visit, or if they don't have the freedom to go abroad for looking for opportunities, then essentially that country has become like an open prison. Yeah, it's true. I mean, many people have made this kind of observation. When people are kept within the borders, when they have no any means of getting out, they will definitely try their own ways of leaving the country. So it's a country that's still instituted exit visa. This is something that belonged to the old communist era. So you still have to get the authorization. You have to go through all kinds of very long process in order to be able to get an exit visa. So essentially, this is a country that has kept its population in detention.
If Europe decided to open borders to all Eritreans escaping from the regime, what will happen?
Well, I can only speculate about this. I mean, what would happen if borders are opened? Borders are not very wide open at the moment. We know that in many parts of Europe, there's this fear of people coming in. Immigration has been highly politicized. So you have the limits, you have the limits to getting in. But you're asking me, suppose Europe liberalizes or borders are open. Well, there are two things here. There is, as I said, the push factor, which gets many people to leave the country, which is the system itself, particularly that keeps its citizens, the young people, as its own subjects, as a private property. Now, if that is a push factor that really is making many people leave their country, then there is the other pull factor, which is opening up of borders in Europe. And I believe this trend will continue even when you have some kind of change, so to say, or some kind of social or change or socio-political change in the country.
But the system could collapse.
Well, naturally, if there is some kind of demographic crisis in the country, if very few people are left in the country, it will fall on its own weight. It cannot stand in itself. After all, the main asset of a country, of this country, of such a small country, is its own population. So it would be very logical to say that it will collapse.
And if the system collapses, the situation will solve because the country will be open to the world. Well, you are afraid a collapse of the system could cause other problems?
Well, again, this is something that I can only speculate. You know, there are lots of factors. That area, that region is very volatile. It's one of the very important, strategically very important, very significant parts of the world. You have the Red Sea, and across, you have Saudi Arabia. You have the
Somalia is near.
Somalia is there at the northern tip. Of course, I mean, there are lots of factors that come in here, but supposing the system fails, well, there's there's this fear, of course, there's not going to be a smooth transition to a new socio-political order because of the very nature of this system. Like in many other countries, post-dictatorship or post-totalitarian system has its own consequences. In which case,
Libya.
Well, I wouldn't make this kind of a very gross comparison anyway. I wouldn't make, because all countries, all places have got their own unique kind of context, their own unique features, and it all depends on how the Eritrean society is prepared to really come into terms with this new kind of significantly changed situation. It all depends on how the political forces play out the politics itself, and the regional forces who have got some stake in the country, in Eritrea itself. So it's a combination of lots of factors, which for me at this level is very difficult to really make any kind of statement with certainty.
However, now many Eritreans are trying to cross the desert in a very dangerous way. They have been taken prisoners, raped, tortured by people in different countries. Even when they reach a country like Israel, for example, they have been invited to leave. Okay, however, have not been welcome. If not really deported, however, have not been accepted. And so the situation is very serious now. It's very hard for thousands and thousands of Eritreans.
Yes, indeed. It's very...
What can Europe do for these people who are on the way, who are in a very dangerous situation? I think also about Sinai Peninsula.
Well, actually, the Sinai affairs is relatively better now. I think, although we can't say it has been totally put under control, there is some improvement there. But the crossing the Sahara, the trekking all the way to Libya, and crossing or sailing across the Mediterranean is a trend that's still continuing. Well, as far as what Europe could do is concerned, well, Europe could do a lot of things. Europe is a very important power, and many people find it easy to come to Europe. As everybody's aware now, people without flying, without having to fly, they use different means of transport and get to the borders of Europe. And this has become of concern to Europe, and it has become an international issue now. Well, I can't say what needs to be done, but as an Eritrean, I would say, I mean, there should be some way that this trend has to somehow be controlled, checked, because after all, the country, it needs its population. If it has to be reconstructed, if it has to be renewed, the very important asset of this country is the young people. So there should be some way of saving these people. If they can't be rescued, okay, if they can't be accepted in the borders so that they can settle here, and one day, eventually, they can go back to their country and reconstruct their country. So there should be some kind of humanitarian approach to the present crisis, and particularly countries like the UK have to change their approach. They have to change their policies towards Eritrean asylum seekers, because these are people who have genuine reason to come to Europe for protection, for safety. There should be some way of helping them.
If Eritrea radically changed its system, could it be a rich country? Could it be a Dubai?
Well, again, this is very difficult for me. I mean, Eritrea, first of all, needs to...
Because Dubai was desert before.
Sorry?
Because, for example, Dubai was a desert before.
Yeah, but these countries like Dubai have got natural resources, as you might know. Oil is a very important resource now. I'm not sure about Eritrea. Eritrea's resources could and should have been its own population. It's a very small country with law-abiding people, people who wanted to work, people who were really eager to construct and reconstruct their country. But this couldn't happen because the system was not ready for a change, was not ready for equal and equal kind of share in the power, in the resources. And because it failed, because it couldn't do this, the young people have left, the educated have left. So before actually thinking about whether we can turn Eritrea into another Dubai, I think it's better that we consider the idea of how this country, first of all, has to be rebuilt in every sense, in terms of its human resources, in terms of its infrastructure, in terms of its economy, the political reform, and if you like, change, political change, and some kind of renewed cultural kind of revolution. It has really suffered. Social values have suffered. The country is in a crisis. The country is in a moral, spiritual crisis. This needs to be mended. Then you can think about whether or not this country can be prosperous, rich country that could attract foreigners. That's an ideal. That's the ideal that we all should cherish. But our short-term concern is how to, first of all, be able to mend this country, how to really save this country, which is on the verge of collapse. Yeah.